The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight! Oh!
We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes,
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuit!
Everybody loves hip photos.
Scary dog!
Dancing at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And over there, representing the great state of Ohio, Representative Jesse Starcher. How do you do, sir?
My fellow Americans, we have come back to season 6 of West Wing, and I am so glad to be here to discuss what is going to turn out to be an epic presidential race.
Yes, sir. And from the great state of Canada, the Right Honorable Sober Second Fight.
I'm sorry, I didn't know it worked this way.
Thank you, Star-Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, Marvel Studios' favorite son, Andrew Graham. How do you do, sir?
I'm doing good, Mark. How are you guys doing?
Existentially dreadful after today, but
I'm sorry to hear that.
We're not here to discuss the great collapse of the United States. At least
Real politics.
Yeah. If we could just stick to the fake politics, please.
I just heard a story right before I got down here that my wife told me, and I'm like, oh fuck. Anyway, you know what? At this point, I saw a great post a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go back to living in precedented times.
Yes.
I'm like, I can't. Yeah, no, I'm ready for that.
The great thing about being one of the few people who actually remembers like history and has kind of a systemic brain. If you've listened to my TikToks of late, you know what I'm talking about, the way I think about things, is I'll look at something happening now. It'll immediately remind me of something that happened before, and I will start kind of weaving together a variety of seemingly disconnected strands to make a very strong and frightening rope. Mm. Then I start thinking about doing what else I can do with this rope, and then I have to go, and then I have to stop.
No, Mark, don't do it.
and go find something else to do, like not think about, worldwide collapse. But hey, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the West Wing season 6. The West Wing season 6 followed season 5. Also, it is an American political drama television series which aired in the U.S. on NBC from October 20th, 2004 to April 6th of 2005. This season focused on the fallout from season 5, which was the Israeli-Palestinian thing, which is still going on to this day in real life. Mm-hmm. But it also covers the primary season and the running of potential nominees in both the Republican and Democrat Party. So this features a lot, in Alan Alda's character of Senator Arnold Vinick. And then we have the representative from Texas, Jimmy Smits. Josh leaves the White House for a brief period of time to run Jimmy Smits's whose character's name is Santos, his campaign for the presidency. We have Baghdad Bob, or whatever it is that they call him.
Baghdad Bob. No.
Bingo Bob.
Bingo
Bob. Sure. Who is the current vice president and the uncrowned prince of the Democrat Party, and so he's running. Plus, we have disgraced and having been resigned former Vice President Hoynes, and so And then in an appearance that he may have appeared earlier in the show and I missed it, but Ed O'Neill, my God, Senator Al Bundy from the great state of Chicago, great city of Chicago.
I think that was probably because it was the thing with them in the Oval Office with the letter, right? That was his first appearance.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was kind of blinking and you missed it thing, but he shows up right at the end to kind of throw the whole Democrat convention into disarray. So, yeah. And I looked at it, I was like, that's Al! Yep. With his women's shoes. So, I guess we'll start in order of things. Let's kind of picking up where season 5 left off. And season 6 begins. They are at Camp David trying to get the Israelis and the Palestinians to not genocide each other. I'll go to you first, Andrew. So this is mirroring a lot of what happened. I mean, this whole show is kind of Clinton-era politics wish fulfillment writ large. However, the thing that they're specifically focusing on was Clinton's efforts at Camp David to get Yasser Arafat and whoever was Ayud Barad.
Yitzhak Rabin would have been
to sit down at the table and not kill each other. And I actually remember in real life them fighting over whether or not Jerusalem was going to stay with the Israelis or Palestinians, and I think they had devised kind of a shared capital plan, which would have been interesting. Could you imagine? We're going to share the capital with Mexico and Canada, and it's going to be right there in Wyoming. So I will. So let's talk about it. What did you think of how they handled? And it's a major piece of the plot because this is where we start to see the shift in characters and White House staff. So I will shut up so you can actually answer the question I've now tried to ask you 3 times.
So I think there's probably about 3 things I want to hit on there. I think the first one is just, I think this show, because, oh my God, I do not want to get into the actual politics of this. I think it does a good job of illustrating the intractability and the complexity of all the feelings around this, where you just have all these parties. And a lot of the time, and I know this is something that I've mentioned before, but anybody who talks about being in actual politics, one of their biggest criticisms of the show is that you don't have nearly as many scenes of people just slamming their heads against the desk trying to come up with an idea. And you actually have more scenes of that where it's just like they're just trying to think their way out of this.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that divide and conquer, that personal politicking that unfortunately ends up with Toby getting put on his ass by a shotgun and trying to do through that. And I think the other thing that, is a thread they pick up on from season 5 is the inherent conflict between Leo and the president over how to manage the situation going forward. And it's that element of we don't always know how it ends. And it basically comes to a head where effectively they kind of come to a mutual parting agreement before Leo takes the dumbest walk in the woods ever and has a massive heart attack.
Well, he really did walk into the woods to die deliberately, didn't he?
I remember watching that in whatever this was, like 2003, 2004, and literally it was me, my mom, my dad, my sister yelling at the TV, Leo, stop! Go back to the pathway!
Yeah, no kidding.
So a couple of thoughts about things you said. One, I also don't want to get into the real life politics of this, so I will make a very general statement, and that is in terms of the TV show and only the TV show, I don't want to sidetrack into real life. I can see where the Israelis are coming from. Big shock, I know, but stay with me. Where even in the fiction of the show, they recognize real life. And that is, from the Israelis' point of view, is we've given you every opportunity to strike a bargain over the years, and you take every single one of them to say, no, into the sea with you. At some point, how many more times do we have to be told you don't negotiate with terrorists? And I don't necessarily even mean, the good old-fashioned car bomb kind. I mean people who there is no making them happy. There is no solution that they'll agree to. They've made their intentions clear. And so the Israelis are like a lap or two beyond everybody else in this process. How many more times do we have to be told, they want us all dead? There is no solution. So why are we talking about this? Why are you dragging us here to talk about this? And how much more we've given up all there is to give up. And just from a dramatic standpoint, like, I get where the Israeli point of view is coming from. At some point, if your negotiating partner refuses to be reasonable, this seems like an exercise in futility. It was one of the few things I actually did like about this season, because I don't love this season very much. And we'll talk about why in the next segment. I want to keep on this first part. But I think it started off strong. I think it's starting off with the very tenuous negotiating that goes on between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And I think, just to kind of take up on the Arab side, they have a stake in this world. First of all, there's like a zillion of them. Like Muslims represent a good portion of the world's population. They matter. Their opinion matters. And in terms of at least how the world was functioning back then, it may not be functioning like that anymore as much, or definitely not so much as time goes on. A large concentration of the world's energy resources are in the Middle East. Sorry, that matters. They get a say. They may not be where we need them to be in terms of emotional intelligence and first world propriety, but who cares? They've got the oil, they get a say, and that I thought was also fairly well represented in the show. So I think if the show's point is to say this isn't as easy as bomb them, which seems to be the go-to answer, I think the show did a good job of presenting the Kobayashi Maru-ness of Israeli-Palestinian negotiations. What do you think, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, the weight that I picked up on during this whole thing was just the challenge that Bartlet had in front of him to try and come out of this looking like he did something. Mm-hmm. Because this isn't just hundreds of years. This is like thousands of years of stuff that has gone on between these two people. And this one
to the Bible.
Right.
I don't know if you've heard of a little incident called the crucifixion of Jesus. Took place during Roman times.
It did.
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere. So, this is for one man to think that they can go in here and try to get some type of resolution is pretty daunting. And you can't help but root for Bartlet to do something. No matter, it's not just him going in there and doing this. He's got other people telling him that he can't do this on his own side. Like, this is not going to work. And
my God, Toby, like 5 times during that whole sequence, looked like he was going to have kittens.
Right, dude. So it was interesting to see the challenge laid before him and see how they were going to come out of this, because my initial thought was like, they're not going to actually get something done here. This is going to be one of those situations where they're going to walk away. Some party's going to walk away from it. And that's not the case. Just like you said, it's wish fulfillment. We're seeing them actually hammer something out. And it was really neat to see the process of that, like how they did divide up into groups to attack certain issues and then try to come together and see where they can find some type of middle ground. Sorry, that was really interesting.
The meeting with President Bartlet in the leader of the Israelis and the Palestinians, and he was like, "So this is a meeting to talk about the topics. What I'd like to see happen is for the Palestinians to go fuck themselves right to Mars." And President Bartlet's like,
"Yeah."
I said this is to discuss the topics.
We've all been in those meetings. We just want to talk about this thing, and no, then a whole other thing comes in, and then it's like, shit goes sideways.
Right.
I don't know how many times I have to tell you, men, foreplay first. Then we get to the thing you want to get to. But for God's sakes.
Yeah.
You and I went in very different directions in this conversation.
I think I like that first meeting that they have where he sits down at the table and he's like, he lays out the things. It takes like 30 seconds. He's like, okay, now we can go do something. And they're like, what the hell, man? I figured this was going to be an hour's worth of a talk. It's like, no, we've got plenty of time. But yeah, I like I said, the challenge was there. This is a real world challenge that it is almost seems impossible to solve. Kobayashi Maru is a perfect way of framing that for you Star Trek fans. So anyway, there you go.
I wanted to talk to you, Andrew, about the scene between Bartlet and Leo, because something struck me as this is they had the bit where where Leo confronts Bartlet about this is the worst part of your liberalism.
Yep.
They had the bit at the Opera House. Yeah, they had the bit at the Opera House, where he's like, "You got to do it. I understand." I think it was all part of the same incident, but there were a couple of conversations where Leo was like really pushing him because Bartlet reveres, and I know what this is like. Bartlet reveres Leo as being smarter than he is in ways that are very important, and so he doesn't necessarily defer to him, but he kind of looks up to him, as like Big Brother. And Big Brother is saying, "Come on, you got to do what's right here," and he doesn't want to. Like, this isn't. It's funny. The commander-in-chief of the American military is the President of the United States of America, which seems like and your point is, but it gets often overlooked because people seem to think the president is the head social worker in charge, and he's not. He's not the guy that makes the law. Can write an executive order or two, but he's not a lawmaker per se. He is the commander-in-chief of the military, but nobody necessarily runs because they want to run the military. This goes for Republicans too. It just as a quick aside, George W. Bush ran for president. He ran for president because he couldn't run a baseball team. But wouldn't you want to be that guy though, Jesse? Like, I failed running a baseball team, so why did I just run for president? Seems like an easier job. I wish I had those options.
Failing up.
That is George W. Bush's biography, Failing Upwards. But he. I'm going to sort of annoying somebody with that stuff, but
strategery.
Yes,
I'm the decider.
Nuclear.
Nuclear.
But yeah. So where I was going with this. Oh, George W. Bush didn't run for president because he wanted to lead the military, or because he wanted to start a war. As a matter of fact, and I've talked about this 1,000 times with Jesse, because for the reason I do most of my political talking with the guy who doesn't like politics. But I remember, like, in the Bob Woodward book, Bush at War, and they were having their first national security meeting, and they said to Bush regarding the Israelis and the Palestinians, "So what do you want to do?" And Bush just kind of goes, "Why don't we just let them kill each other?" And poor Wolfowitz just fell over in his chair. Don Rumsfeld, he's still there in that meeting going, "What?" 20 years later. But read Bush at War. You'll understand. My point is, he ran because he wanted to do stuff with education. He was another education guy. No Child Left Behind. That was his big piece of legislation. He wanted to fix. I have a mandate to fix Social Security. Okay. He wanted to do that. There were domestic policy things that he wanted to do. A lot of them do. Barack Obama, same thing. Bill Clinton, same thing. Nobody runs to be the guy that runs the military.
One of the all-time best presidential quotes is Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
"My beautiful society was ruined by that bitch of a war."
Right. And then you get
right there. He was all about the beautiful society and the Vietnam War. Great society.
Yeah. Right, and then he gets screwed up by that pesky Vietnam War, and by extension the Cold War. But the point of me bringing all of that up is getting back to my central point. Bartlet is cut from that mold.
Yep.
I want to be the domestic policy advisor in chief, and then they're like, "You're kind of the guy that runs the military, and oh, by the way, everything's hot, wet, and on fire. Go deal with it." And so Leo talking to him, saying, "This is the worst part of your liberalism. You have to, you have to do this. You have to commit an assassination." And what's the result? All of this stuff they didn't. This is my point. All of the stuff they never counted on, not the least of which was the kidnapping of his daughter. And so we get to the Israeli-Palestinian thing, and Leo's like, "You gotta," and Bartlet basically was just like, "I don't gotta do nothing but stay black and die. And listening to you is what got my daughter kidnapped." And he doesn't say it directly, but he definitely says it with subtext, and he kind of screams other words that mean that.
Well,
and Leo not being able to like to shoulder the guilt and to kind of feel the weight of falling from grace and the guy that idolized you. like, no wonder he went into the woods to go die deliberately. His heart, he didn't die of a heart attack.
It was a broken heart.
He died of a, God damn it, you beat me to it. Yes, Jesse, he died of a broken heart. Like, I'm about to, you ran over my line. Now go ahead, Andrew.
Well, I was about to say, like, I mean, they directly reference that where it's like, you know, tell me this isn't about Zoe. And it's like, it absolutely is about Zoe. It's about bombs in Central Square, in Central Place in like Central Park or Times Square.
Times Square.
Like
Times Square.
Because it's like,
those are two different places, you Canadian. It's Times Square and Central Park. They're both on the same island.
Yeah, I do know Jim, Bob, and Ellen from Canada. I'm sure they're all nice people. I do not, in fact, live in an igloo.
Fantastic. You were saying, sir.
Anyway, like, there is that definite direct reference to that, and it is, you know, I think you nailed it, Mark. You know, the whole push between Bartlet always wanting to do something, always thinking there's some reasonable way out, appealing to people's better angels, and there's Leo's degree of, he believes in that, but he also is enough of a pragmatist to say that shit will go sideways on this one tonight. Like, things will go wrong badly. We don't know how this is going to end. You know, I mean, we talk about, the phrase gets thrown around a lot, but in a lot of cases, this is a forever war.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah. I am going to jump in because I got to drop at least one good book recommendation, but Holy War by Karen Armstrong's an excellent read if you want to get deeper into this, Mark.
I may or may not have already read that, but it's been so long.
It's like, it's a
I'll have to check my Goodreads list, Andrew. I have a Goodreads list of all the books I read back in 2011. Jesse, I'll let you kind of finish this out, and then we'll move on. That bit with Leo and Bartlet that sets up the rest of the season.
Oh, yeah. Where, I mean, that was kind of like my first note that I had listed here, where Leo's looking at him. You are going to have to give the order for the bombing. And he's like, or what? And well, okay. And then, yeah, just like you said, Leo turns around and walks into the woods and has a heart attack. Boy, that's scary. Like, what's the word? Foreshadowing as to what's going to happen in real life, right? Doesn't he actually pass away due to a heart attack? Which it's sad. You know, I'm watching this. I knew kind of what happened, and then I'm like, man, it's heart wrenching. But anyway, so yeah, we kind of get this clash between these two, and then, you know, he accepts. I can't tell. I thought he was kind of resigning, but, you know, Bartlet did say, okay, give me the name of your replacement.
Yep.
And at that point, I was like, damn, these two guys are done with each other.
Let me say this. I think, and I will reduce it to my small microcosm of a world, my small little amoeba of a world. I'm willing to take suggestions from you guys, but I'm the one that's in charge. And Leo kind of forgets that Bartlet is the one in charge. He serves at the pleasure of the president, and it was getting to the point where, and this is kind of a revolving theme of the show, where you know, let Bartlet be Bartlet. It's Bartlet, I think, like any good, you know, emotionally intelligent person, does try to compromise, does understand that it can't be your way all the time, but occasionally he has to kind of bite back and remind people, I'm the fucking president. And they all kind of have to remember that, well, Josh and Toby and Leo all mean well. And they're also, especially Toby at times, they are all just looking at it from their own point of view. They cannot step outside themselves and see another way. Josh kind of does over this course of the season. We'll talk about that. But everybody else is very much like siloed and got blinders on. And Bartlet has to be the one to remind them, who's the fucking president around here? I am, last time I checked.
Yeah. Well,
and Leo was very much forgetting that and kind of got his comeuppance for it.
Well, and there's that, and I can't remember if it was the finale of season 5, but they had that one episode where they had the bookends of like Bartlet early on in his presidency and talking about not knowing what to do when it comes to the Joint Chiefs and stuff like that. And at one point he says, Leo, it should have been you. And then the bookend of that, it was the finale of season 5, him walking out to something. It's like, it's me now, Leo. It's me. And he's you know, he's delivering that line with, I think, a fair amount of bravado, but also a fair amount of he was very much resigned to it, where it's like, it's mine, it's my weight to bear. And Leo says, I can't carry the ring, Mr. President, but I can carry you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's it.
There we go. You picked up on it.
I got the line. Right. Yes. Okay. So, but I was again thinking about George W. Bush, you know, where he obviously came in as sort of a foreign policy lightweight, to say the least. And by the end of his 8 years, he knew a thing or two about the Middle East, if nothing else. I mean, you kind of get a crash course in this stuff, and either you learn or you die in the job. It is what it is. I want to move on, because what happens here is, yes, Leo goes down, and they replace him as chief of staff with CJ, leaving a vacancy in the what's the name of her role again? The
press secretary.
Press secretary. And I'll tell you, she one of the few things I did like about this season is CJ as press secretary, because
you mean chief of staff?
Chief of staff, yeah, sorry. Because Leo as chief of staff always felt like dad. You know, dad always trying to wrangle the children. Dad always, you know, telling them, you know, knock it off or I'm turning this democracy around. You know, that kind of a thing. Like, knock off that racket, you. And CJ was always like the little sister. You know, Toby and Josh were were the older brothers, and we're so far removed from Sam being on the show that Rob Lowe being on the show that it doesn't matter anymore for this analogy. But Toby and especially later on, when they actually start fighting in the office, yes. Toby and Josh are like the 14 and 15-year-old brother, and then there's, you know, little Susie Sweetpants, CJ. You know, who's like 6 or 7 years old. She's like, I just want to be included with the boys, and they're just like, ew, go girls. And now 6 seasons later, CJ is very much stepped into her role, poised and knowledgeable and ready to tear ass if she needs to. She's evolved as a character I really like. And I actually use her being the chief of staff. You know, I'll tell you, current Hollywood writers could learn a thing or two. I know the writing of this show around this time gets a lot of shit, but it's miles away better than stuff that's currently going on. And modern writers of capable women should learn from this season how to write powerful, capable women. And one of my favorite CJ lines is when she's actually talking to, Leo's secretary.
Margaret.
Yeah, Margaret, right. You didn't change your name to Margaret this time, so I forgot it.
Margaret.
Margaret also gets a little bit of a bigger role this season, because because in previous seasons they focused so much on Donna that Margaret was kind of comedy relief. And I'll never forget her wanting to commit treason, a coup d'etat by signing the president's name. Dude, Leo's reaction to that to this day still cracks me up. I think it's a coup d'etat. But you know, this season she has a lot more to do, and she's a lot more of a character, and she treats CJ with a lot of love. And at some point, because I think as a character, and I think both in the fiction of the show, she gets overlooked as kind of a dull broad. And CJ kind of takes a moment and she says, "You're an odd woman, but capable, and I'm glad you're here."
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was one of the few high points of the show for me. Was that little interaction when she spills something on CJ's blouse and she has to like clean it up and everything. She's really like mothering CJ, and it's just, like, it's something along the lines of, "I wish you would tell me these things." And she's just like, "No, for one, you're not my wife." And I was like, "Oh, like ah." But I liked her in the role of chief of staff. I also kind of liked Leo as sort of like the background, like mob boss, kingmaker kind of just. I didn't know where they were going when he was watching State of the Union speeches, and everyone's like, "Are you gonna do anything today besides this?" He's like, "I am doing something," and he reminds people, like, "We have a year left. Could we not fucking garbage time this and actually try to get some shit done?" So I just wanted to talk about CJ for a moment. Your thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, very much on the same page as you. The CJ transition to chief of staff is really great. I mean, the writing's there, but I think maybe what I'll focus on a little bit is the way they actually start just working with Alice and Jenny in terms of the way they costume her. Like, her costumes become a little bit more assertive. The other interesting thing is that I think about it, they shoot her taller, which is already,
my God, her next to Kristen Shadow, her next to Kristen Chenoweth is like Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
Are we the same species?
Yeah.
But I mean, like previously, Allison Janney's height had always been played for gags.
Yeah.
Like I mean, last season we had the whole Big Bird bit, but
right.
in this case, they actually do shoot her tall to shoot her with authority.
Yeah.
And she very much, you know, she kind of has to make that transition. I think really the first episode where she is chief of staff liftoff is probably one of my favorites. Because again, it's again getting into that management around how all that stuff works and how that works at that other level down where it's like she goes and she says, you know, Hutchison's a son of a bitch, isn't he? Yeah, he is. But Leo never talked to, and this is where Margaret is invaluable. Leo never talked to cabinet level people. She always talked to their chiefs of staff first.
Right.
So it's kind of like, again, getting into that guts of how the systems actually work, who you talk to, who you build your relationships with, everything like that. But yeah, I seriously enjoy the CJ transition to chief of staff during this season. And Leo is emeritus.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of what hit home with me too, is watching her get thrown into this role because I think we were all expecting it was going to be Josh. And then they kind of swerved us and said, no, it's going to be
who wrote
CJ.
this? Ryan Johnson?
So we see CJ step into the role and just kind of
watching this. I was just like, what the fuck was that? The Last Jedi joke. Don't worry about it.
I was going to say, there's Star Wars is involved, people.
Wait a minute, guys. It could be worse. It could be J.J. Abrams. Somehow Walken returned.
Keep going, Jesse.
But yeah, watching her get into this role and then learning the ins and outs, because, when you're working something for quite a while and then you get thrown into, that's a big deal, taking over Leo's place. There's a lot. It's a bit of a difference.
She knows jump from press secretary to chief of fucking staff.
Right, dude. There's plenty of, the people, but I really don't think you know the role. Right. Or at least you might have some idea of it, but my goodness, I'm sure. And they did a good job of showing how overwhelming it was when she first got in there and how she had to learn how to deal with people in order to get things done. And then by the end of this season, she's very competent in what she's doing. She's making these decisions. And I know we're going to be probably mentioning the stuff about the MS, but her interaction with Abby, you could tell as she's learning her role at that point, and she realizes that what she has to do for the president and not be influenced by other people, like she probably was as press secretary. She had more of an idea of or at least more compassion for what other people were trying to do for the president at that point. Now she has a completely different role.
Kind of worked for Toby. And,
right,
in a weird role reversal, and a very actual role reversal, Toby now works for her, and there's some sparks that fly between the two of them. Because again, she was Kid's sister, and now she's the HNIC, and it's like Toby's like, what the ever loving fuck? And can we talk about Toby this season?
Yeah, buddy.
Holy cow! I found my spirit animal. It's Toby. I'm tired. I'm over it. I have ideas and no one will listen. And I'm mad and I'm just unbearable to be around.
You guys have fantastic beards.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm making light of it. But the episode where I think it's Toby's brother that dies.
Yep.
And he spends the entirety of it in the bar with one of the female nominees for president. And he's talking about it. That's my favorite episode this season.
Yeah, it's really good.
That was a great episode.
Because Richard Schiff is usually is the one running around barking domestic policy at people. Social Security. My God. And then here Richard Schiff has to remind people he's an actual actor, and not a barking policy machine. And it's really good stuff. A lot of depth there. The scene with him and Josh. And I mentioned that they were like brothers, and brothers sometimes fight and don't get along. That palpable feeling of betrayal that he feels was like, you had a job that mattered. There's a lot of projection and a lot of taking on something as part of your identity, and then feeling betrayed by the other person when they're not with you. And there was so much going on in that one scene that it's so funny that these very learned, very important men just became like knuckle dragging, drooling barbarians, just like sissy fighting with each other. Because that fight. On the other hand, I'm like, oh, dramatic! My goodness, my heavens to Betsy! And then as an MMA person, huh? Why would you do that? I kept yelling at Josh, fucking go for the legs.
No. I think ground and pound. As soon as they locked up and one of them ended up, getting the other one in a headlock, I think reasonable minds finally come into play like, oh, we're a bunch of idiots. And they finally called it off.
Well, it's the subtext that, fighting. This is why I've always laughed at some of the stuff with Star Wars, because there's a lot of fighting, but it doesn't mean anything. This is a fight that meant something, and it's better than anything I've seen most recently in Star Wars.
Oh yeah, I'll agree.
It was
100%.
them coming to it. It was what the Anakin Obi-Wan fight was supposed to be. It was like you were.
Yeah.
It was literally like you were the chosen one. You were supposed to lead the Democrat Party, not chase after fucking Santos. And he's like, he's my guy, and I love him. I'm like, ugh, I hate everything about this and you. So yeah, of course they wanted to punch each other in the face.
Yep.
Wow.
And there's that, talking about where Richard Schiff is and where the arc of that character is, there is that little bit of he's mad at Josh because he didn't pick the guy.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that little bit of, I don't know if betrayal is the right word there, where it's like, wait a second, you went and you picked a guy without me?
Right.
Yeah, he feels like he's been left behind. Like, it would be, if you've gone through hell and high water to get somebody nominated and win the presidency, and you're a team, and it would suck to watch that guy walk away from that team without giving it a second thought. Like, hey, why don't you come with me? Let's do this together.
But I think this is another really important element to this is, Toby's character really feels like the important work was in the White House. It was what they were doing, and he abandoned that to chase the new pretty thing. And it's like, no, why would you do this? Why would you give up the here and now to go chase a future that might not even happen? Where have I heard?
I saw it flipped around. I thought he wanted to go with Josh, and both of those guys do it again. Because I think Toby still wanted to be active. He didn't want to just be, because they were, this administration is winding down. I imagine continue to chase the dream. I thought Toby wanted to go with him, but Toby, man, that episode, man, that was the episode for me where I just saw Richard Schiff and how he can act, and it was amazing.
The other really, really brilliant Richard Schiff moment is the bit with the kids.
Oh, yes.
And they're like, and the kids don't we matter? Don't our thought? Sure, we can't vote yet, but do you not want us to become good voters? Like, why are you dismissing us out of hand? And I think it's actually, I think they wrote for that kid a very real point. Do people only matter when their votes matter? Like, is that really the way that we want to operate? So him kind of debating with the kid was a really fun scene for me. I'll give you a moment to catch up with the conversation, Andrew, about the Toby stuff, and then we'll move on to something else.
I think I jumped in with that one part. I mean, yeah, there's definitely a little bit of both going on with Toby, where there's a bit of why did you jump ship, but also why didn't you take me with you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's definitely that fear of missing out.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I mean, again, when we get to, and I had to look at, sorry, I was going through and trying to remember what episode it was. It was drought conditions. And when you also stack in the fact that he's already feeling abandoned because his brother died, and I'm trying to remember if we established how he died in that episode.
Oh yeah, he'd put himself in a car and turned the
he died by suicide, which I think would give Toby some degree of a feeling of abandonment.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then seeing Josh,
I did mention there was a lot of projection in that scene.
Oh yes, for sure. But that was a great episode. The only thing that ever bugs me is like, wow, there are two people fighting in the White House and there's no security showing up anywhere.
Yeah, sure.
No one wasn't escorted out.
Again,
when he didn't come in and start spinning his rifle.
After having sat through Ballerina, I assume there are no police in fiction. So that said, I guess we have to, and this is where I don't love a lot of this season. We have to talk about Bartlet's MS. I'm so sick of this already. Like, I wish they had like written in a stem cell thing where they cure him, but like South Park style where he just eats the stem cells. just a plate of stem cells. I feel stronger than ever.
Start doing flips down the hall.
I will destroy you, Hackman. Remember that South Park episode? But yeah,
Bring me the speaker.
Yes. I will let you guys speak more about this. I fucking hated every moment of this stuff with. I will say this: there's an interaction that Bartlet has with Abby, where he's coming face. He's such a big man, you know. He's such a big, smart, command of the room man, and the MS is making him smaller day by day, and he is trying to reconcile that within himself so that it doesn't eat him alive. What's left of him. And, you know, we've already established in previous seasons he can't control the weather but beats himself up because he can't. Things like that. You know, this is a guy who I have all the he is Marvin the paranoid android. He has all these, you know, all this intelligence, and they ask him to, you know, shuffle a deck of cards. That's kind of how he's been feeling. Like, I have all this power. I'm the president, and between the MS and just the general gridlock of Washington, I feel powerless. And he says something about the Celtics game, and Abby completely like goes with it, and she's, you know, and treats the Celtics playing like it's the most important thing in the world. Look, I know, especially with what's happened to me over the last little bit, I come across as way bitter, and I am. But I still treasure beautiful moments between husband and wife, and that was one, and it got to me. Like, that was a. I pray someday to have a Jed and Abby relationship where, you know, you just intrinsically have a partner who sees you and knows to get the other end of the couch without you having been told. Just a natural partner, besides Jesse, but a natural partner, you know, who sees you and helps you and all of that. And I'm like, to me, ladies, that Abby talking about the Celtics for a moment with Jed is romance. Your thoughts on the MS stuff, guys, now that I've done my campaign speech?
I was going to say you were probably doing really good on the ladies front until you said ladies like 8 times.
I'm nothing if not annoying.
Yeah. I'll start here with the MS. Mark, you didn't like it when it originally showed up, right? You had issues with it.
It eats up so much screen time.
Well, I think that really the only I found it didn't bother me as much. I think it was, you know, an important plot point that was already set, you know, to just whisk MS away would not be a good idea. Like he had it in previous season, and now it's not going to come back up again. That's not going to happen. So I think the focus on it was probably organic, in my opinion, because it's just going to progressively probably get worse for him. And I don't know what else they could have done as well with Jed this season. You know, we could have went back to a monster of the week. That really wasn't the case this season. And because, as you can see, we're going to be talking about probably the focus on the campaigns and our different nominees and all that.
That is next on my agenda, pal.
Yeah. But so, yeah, as far as the MS stuff goes, I thought Martin Sheen did a fantastic job of like getting across a man who is losing his faculties and trying to struggle with being the president of the United States at the same time. Like, okay, I'm going to go to China. All right, I can't walk right now. Let's see. What are we going to do? Turn the plane back? No, I'm making this trip. It really, I mean, I thought it was done well. The moment where he's in the bathroom and falls over after he's brushing his teeth, hits his head on the damn floor. I mean, my gosh, unfortunately, you know, we get older and we have to deal with things like this. And it was tough to kind of see President Bartlet go through this, and it happens to anybody, even the president of the United States. So there you go. That's my thoughts. Andrew, you got anything?
Oh, absolutely. Damn, Jesse, you covered a lot there, brother. That was good. You know, I think maybe I'll pick up on it where a lot of this, maybe even pick up on a little bit of what Mark said. I mean, I think one of the defining traits of Bartlet, and I say this as a recovering Catholic, is that man has got a case of Catholic guilt like you have never, ever seen.
Mhm.
And part of that also, one of the other major aspects is that he's a stubborn man.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally going from that choice, we're going to go all the way to China. We're going to stick it out and talk to the Chinese president for 2 hours. We're going to try and brush my teeth, even though we shouldn't. And even going to what I remember, we have our little offline chat, but I just remember when my message shows up, and it's like, Jesse said this with, holy shit, Doc Brown's here.
Yeah.
And, he stays up too late. And it's just that. And I get it because, I've got a little bit of that stupid drive where it's like, even if you're hurt, you push yourself too hard. And he's doing the exact same thing because on some level, it's the way he's wired. On some level, I think there's a little bit of denial about what his condition is.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do like all of it. And again, it goes back to the more I think about it, the more this season does really start to talk about, not only politics at large, but personal politics. So like, who can I talk to in the Israeli delegation? Or who can I talk to in China? Or who do I talk about in China to get that across? And what can I do when, I'm in the room where it happens, the room where it happens, the room where it happens. Yeah, well, Emmanuel Miranda totally stole that. Anyway, now that I've sang for the day. But it really does get into that whole idea of personal politics, his ability to engage and manage situations. Again, they dedicate a whole episode to that, the wake-up call. I think it's, Mark, I'll disagree with you on this one. I think it's probably one of the stronger kind of thematic elements that runs itself through the season. And he even gets some more reflective time on it when he's sitting with Arnold Vinick when they're trying to strike some kind of deal on something. They're literally just sitting there eating ice cream and just talking about like,
oh, that's great stuff. So
what's it like? Oh, it's like getting older, but faster.
Don't get me wrong. There are some great moments of this season, but I'm going to talk to you about why I don't like the season in just a moment. But that doesn't, and like the MS stuff, I don't love it because it eats so much of the screen time and it has nothing to do with politics per se. In fact, there's even a line where they talk about like a half a dozen different presidents who ran the country while being sick or from a wheelchair. Not the least of which was FDR in his four terms that completely broke with tradition. So like, I understand like the importance of it. I understand the value of it. It just doesn't appeal to me in a entertaining way, but I don't think they handled it badly. So transitioning for a moment. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I like politics.
Why, Mark? Why?
Sorry to come out here on this vaunted television show with my personal secrets, but yes, I do enjoy discussions of law and politics and why things work the way that they do and all of that. Here's what I'm not a fan of: election cycles. And I don't, and because elections, I think it was handled well, but there is, like, I participate in the primaries because I think they're important, and I follow some of the people because it's the only time you're ever going to get to hear their policies. So for like, as an example of what I'm talking about would be Andrew Yang. Like, I'm a big proponent of the universal basic income, which is now getting a lot of talk because, the job apocalypse is happening. And as we speak, and we've only been talking about this since the 60s. So, it's high time we start figuring out what to do in a post-work world. So anyway, Andrew Yang has been stumping around for a universal basic income, an idea that's been around since the Nixon administration, and your uncle, and your good old Uncle Milton Friedman, talking about it. And the only time you got to hear him talk about it was when he was running for president in the primaries. Because once the primaries were over, that was the last you heard of Andrew Yang. The primaries are also fun because that's when the clowns come out. Like, look, I'm a one-term congressperson, and I'm, the 300-pound black woman. Hot damn, I'm running for president, and I'm not leaving the race, Jon Stewart. And the next day, she pulled out of the race. So I'm being mean to that one person, but you get to see a lot of the nuts come out. Huh? Yeah, it was one of the women who ran for the Democratic primary, and she came out, announced on the Daily Show, and then dropped out of the race the next day. So you get nut jobs who think they can win the presidency in the primaries, and that's good fun. But the wonkiness of it, like having to go to 1 million like pig socials and pie eating contests in Iowa so that you can win the raucous caucus is not my idea of a good time. And while I understand the need for people running for president and those people running them for president to do that, I don't need to watch it. And so much of this season is that level of running for president. It is the pre-primary, getting your name out there, going to the pie eating contest, politicking your way around New Hampshire, one living room at a time. It's excruciating. And they kind of wrote it so it would reflect reality, which is great for authenticity and awful if that's what you call entertainment. My God, I was like praying for a war to break out. It's one of those where because I'm binging it for the show, I kind of watch a lot of this in bulk, and I'm like, can't pay that close attention to it because it's like in between lunch breaks and TikToking and whatever else it is I'm doing at the time because I've always got 5 things going on. So if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for some level of distraction, like I would have found those early Santos episodes fucking dreadfully boring. The only reason why I didn't was because I was distracted. Your thoughts, Jesse?
So I'm glad you made the statement that it was built to kind of show you how excruciating it is, because that's what I took from it was like, okay, we were getting a nice snapshot of what this looks like for some up and coming people that are trying to become, names, people that will hopefully get voted for, and all of the politicking that they have to do. That's what this show is about. I don't know.
I could never run for president because the minute I said, I have these really big ideas to deal with, the drug war. I hear what you're saying, sir, but what are you planning to do about sugar?
Yep.
The fuck? Leave me. I have big ideas. Like, yes, sir, but there's potholes in the street.
What'd you do in high school?
I would punch an old lady in the mouth. I have no temperament to run for president.
It also cements this is a nation of a lot of people that have a lot of different views
and a lot of needs.
My favorite moment is in the Idaho.
I know where you're going for.
Iowa. Thank you. Idaho's, that's where the potatoes are, right? Anyway, yes. It's corn over in Iowa.
They don't have a primary. They throw a potato, and whoever it hits is the nominee.
Donna finds a guy, and she's trying to talk to him. I assume to drum up some. I can't remember what exactly brought her to this guy's pig yard, but she's talking to him, and he's like going off about all these other things. And supposedly he's supposed to be a Democrat. And by the end of the conversation, she goes, "Are you sure you're a Democrat?" Because all this stuff he was spouting
was, get the government out of our lives.
Yeah, she's like, "Wait a second, what are you talking about?" So that helped show that there are so many people throughout the United States that have so many different viewpoints. And you have to go and try to get either your policy across to these people. The great moment of the Iowa part is where, somebody's got to make I think Santos is pressured into talking about ethanol and accepting it when Vinick is the one who kind of stands up against it. And it's just a matter of like, okay, are you going to concede something in order to get a voting base? So that's kind of what I took from it. Was it excruciating to me? No, I had a good time. I mean, just watching these guys spin their wheels and try to figure out, okay, where do I go? Now, was I lost sometimes, especially when it started to be like, okay, this number over here and this number? I was definitely lost when it started talking about votes and whatever, but I could see that
when they got to the convention?
The convention was, I was
Jesse, have you ever watched a convention on TV?
That would be a no, sir.
Oh my God, it's this close to the Polish Congress. It's awful. It's a goddamn madhouse. It's amazing.
Anyway, yeah, but I found it. I don't know of any other show that I've ever watched that has shown this. So I don't know if you guys got a list of shows to be like, yeah, you want to watch more politics shows? Here you go that show this that's going on.
No, I've never actually seen one that dealt with this level.
Yeah.
Of the pre-primary candidacies. But before I go over to you, Andrew, I want to throw this out there because it's part of this. My big problem with a lot of this half of the season is, boy, if you thought the West Wing was Democrat Party wish fulfillment before. Welcome, Jesus Santos.
I believe it's Jesus.
Jesus.
This guy, I love Jimmy Smits. I loved him when he was a senator from Alderaan. I love him now. But him being like the Hollywood liberal progressive wish fulfillment character of standing up for principle and it actually working, what started out as adorable, then was kind of hilarious, and then became so it was only to be outdone by some of the stuff Vinick does, where I'm like, get the fuck out of here. You people would be taken out back and shot. It's like these are the same people who I said this when I was working through some notes on the show with ChatGPT. I was like, did the people who wrote the show are like they're still angry that we couldn't really run for with any degree of credibility? Spiro Agnew, what the fuck are we doing here? Like they like 3 people got that joke in the world. But Jimmy Smits is this guy who's just like, I'm not doing like his whole dramatic clash with Josh is like, this is how you win campaigns. And he's like, well, if I have to win that way, then I don't want to be president. And I want to be president, so we're going to do it my way. And Josh is like, well, then we're going to lose everything. What are we doing here? And like, that's like 8 episodes in a row. So, but because this is wish fulfillment and this is an even bigger fantasy than the Star Wars universe, it all works out for Jimmy Smits. He makes it past Super Tuesday. No, you would the fuck not. You'd be lucky to get past South Carolina, never let alone Super fucking Tuesday with your nonsense. This would have been look in real life. This is a race between Hoynes and Bingo Bob, but because they like that. But we're commenting on that. We don't want guys like that. We don't want the John Kerrys of the world to win. We want him, to win. His name, help me.
Howard Dean.
Thank you. We want Howard Dean. Yeah. Somewhere out there, Robert Winfrey's like, every fucking time. You're the only one that remembers it.
There's an entire podcast of a show called What Really Happened that actually breaks down the scream.
Oh, perfect. They wanted Howard Dean to win, and he came in 4th in fucking Iowa. No! You don't get to lose to Dick Gephardt in Iowa and be president, nor do you get to then write characters that way and expect them to be in any way believable. A lot of people are lost listening to us, and I'm fine with that. My point is, 20 years of political history in my head. That's what drove me nuts, Andrew, about the Jimmy Smits character is it was too far past the realm of believability in a show that has to at least have some degree of believability.
Okay, this one. There are a lot of points for me to hit on. Okay,
and Andrew's like, if someone get me a towel, I will speak.
I'm going to start with Jesse first because he actually brings up one of my all-time favorite lines of this entire show when talking about kind of the utter grind of American election cycles. And that's that episode where Josh goes to talk to Hoynes about, I can't even remember what, but he pulls him off to the side, and I think it's Tim Matheson who plays Hoynes, right?
Yeah.
All-time great line delivery. You know what, Josh? I have never spoken so much in my life. All I do is talk. That code is a season too late and a thread too short, Josh. You deserve better. America deserves better. And it's like, that just shows what kind of mode you have to be in to do this shit.
Yeah. I happen to have mentioned to Fancy, everybody in these episodes talks like they're cutting a wrestling promo with Vinick doing and what you gonna do when the Republican Party runs wild on you. I will talk about that momentarily.
Okay. Maybe we'll go for the obvious bit of background here. Yeah, Santos is actually kind of foreshadowing based on Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Because at this point, Obama had done his 2004 DNC speech. And then they basically decided to just write a Latino version of him. And then Saints Alive 2 years later, Barack Obama actually became president of the United States.
He was running against half-dead John McCain and the nice lady he brought with him. It wasn't like he had good competition.
I think we need to redefine the definition of nice, Mark. But anyway.
Nice lady!
I hope you're referring to Tina Fey. Anyway.
I'm not.
Okay, so anyway, I like Santos. I think, okay, granted, is this political scenario out there? Yeah, but again, what happened 2 years later? Maybe not so much. I think you also have to have
Barack Obama played a lot of ball, though.
Oh yeah, like
okay, let's not
knew
confuse the two.
Exactly, he knew how to play the game, but I think that's kind of part of the reason they had to write him how it is, because if you have a character who knows what's going on, it's kind of like I'll use the joke from the West Wing Weekly. It's the teledonas. You have to have a character in there who has to not have knowledge or portray themselves not to have knowledge, so you can have the other person tell them about it.
Right.
So you have to have somebody who does not. It's a device. You have to have Jimmy Smits not knowing how to do the whole presidential primary thing, so Josh can walk you through that process. But then that also gives you your dramatic tension. That also gives you your ability to throw curveballs and things like that. Right. So on the one hand, I absolutely acknowledge that. Is it fanciful? Yeah. But I also like the character of Santos. I like the fact that, he does get out over his skis an awful lot. I like the fact that he does have conflict over things. Actually, I'll tell you one thing, because I'm trying to remember how much she's in it this season versus next. If we want to talk about husband-wife chemistry, him and Terry Polo, I think, who plays his wife Helen, they have great chemistry as the show goes on.
Yeah, they do.
I agree.
But I mean, I see what you're getting at. I do tend to like Smits quite a bit, and Santos in this role. So
I'll just quick 2 cents on this. I mean, I'm about as apolitical as they come usually. For some reason, I think you guys are now making me political because I've been watching 6 seasons of this, and now all of a sudden I'm paying attention. Thank you.
I'm so sorry for making you have to do that right now.
Last thing I want to do is be an adult. So
what a time for you to have your political awakening.
Yeah, exactly.
Have I told you about the big beautiful bill, Jesse? Keep going.
Please don't. So again, apolitical as they come, but I could tell that this was something that it would never have happened. And I don't, just because the way we are as a nation and what we look at, none of these guys, whoever, Vinick is the one that really surprised me coming out and, being as honest as he is. And he's a good guy. He's a good Republican candidate. Would that be the nominee? Would that be the people that the other politicians are going to get behind? No, I don't think that would happen. Santos, pulling off what he did at the primary. No, not going to happen. Even I know that. But the thing is that I want this show to be my real, I want this to be real life. If we had a show where just the villains won every time, why would we want to watch it?
We have a David Simon show.
Yeah, we go back in the archives, ladies and gentlemen.
We're having fun.
Guys, there's no country and western in this Humvee. Do I smell fucking charms?
So let's talk about Vinick. So there's something very specific about the Alan Alda character. First of all, he's so congenial. I forgot he was a Republican until they were focusing on him as the Republican nominee.
He is the Republican nominee.
Oh, he's a Republican? God damn. They wrote a Republican that's actually a decent human being. Not John Goodman, who when they introduced him, it was to the Imperial theme from Star Wars.
Well, you see his feet in a briefcase walking, and you're like, oh shit, what is this?
Democrats everywhere.
No, they're fake.
Take the legislation. John Goodman of the Sith.
And his little dog too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they actually made Alan Alda a person in the show, not Maleficent. And there's a bit later on in the season, toward the end of the season, and I actually, this is going to end up being my TikTok because I'd already worked it out ahead of the Tonight Show. But they're having a conversation about picking vice president. This is about when Bingo Bob's offering the vice presidency to Santos because they don't want to because there's a whole thing of we don't want the Democrat Party to look like it's in disarray.
Yeah.
We need we need our John Kerry. We need our presumptive safe candidate, and we can put a nut job with him, and that'll work out just fine. and it's so funny because the show like whole hog buys into the mythology, and it is mythology that your vice president will carry a state for you that you wouldn't have normally gotten. So if you're a progressive northerner, you need a southerner, or a Bible belter or a westerner or something along those lines. You need somebody that's going to carry like the Christian coalition if you're one of these commie northerners. Okay, so we put those two people together. If you're whatever combination there is, you need somebody that's going to carry a state for you that you wouldn't win on your own. Except that I kind of went through the great history of vice presidents from Reagan to now. Not a single one of them carried their own state. Not a single one of them helped the election for them. Their usefulness is in other ways. So like they spend a lot of time on Vinick picking a vice president, and like there's a lot of hemming and hawing over whether or not he'll pick the governor of West Virginia, who's a conservative Christian, and he has his own church and all this other stuff. And he's like, I can't accept the vice presidency. I'm not with you on abortion. Okay, that's actually pretty true. There's a lot of infighting amongst Republicans over that particular chestnut. But their reasoning in the show doesn't match with the reality of why they pick vice presidents. Like Barack Obama is a really great example of this. He was already the radical candidate. He was black. He was young. He was a little further to the left than I think people were comfortable with. So they needed an establishment guy. They needed a John Kerry. And they looked around at all the old white men and picked the safest one they could find, Joe Biden. Same thing with something very similar with George W. Bush, where they were like, well, we've already got kind of our youngish, boyish, good looks, have a beer with everyday president. Now we need Darth Vader. All right, who's available? Dick Cheney. He ain't ever going to be president, but he lends gravitas to this president. He lends legitimacy to George W. Bush, who was considered a lightweight at the time. That kind of a thing. So they spent a lot of time on this, about as much time as I am talking about it, for it not to have mattered all that much. And the only thing that came out of it was yet again to the point where it started to like cause me to have a tick, where Alan Alda and Santos are the writers' mouthpieces for how they feel about shit and wish other real candidates would say. And Vinick going, if you expect perfection out of every single person, you're going to get lied to incessantly. Yes, we all believe that. We all know, those of us who have emotional intelligence know that to be true, but no one's ever going to say that out loud. What are you, nuts? And the fact that he does it and then says, what you going to do when the Republicans run wild on you? I had to fucking laugh at. Yeah, I was like, yeah, it was a little on the nose to play real American at the end of that speech. So
I think it's kind of interesting though. Like, I mean, the introduction of trying to set up all the, and I mean, I think the other thing to think about is, even when you go back 20 years, and it's obviously changed since then, but I think politics wasn't as zero-sum as it is today. Like, you could see a character like him running in the late 90s and being successful. Obviously not today, but that's changed a little bit. But I think it's kind of interesting. Like, the West Wing pulls out one of those great tricks where you find out a lot about the character, what the other people say about him. And it's the episode where Josh goes to him and he turns him down for the UN ambassadorship and says, I'm going to run it. And then he goes back and talks to Leo. And then Leo gives him the whole rundown. I call it the Baba Yaga speech because it's like the same thing of when John Wick gets described as Baba Yaga. And it kind of sets up what your expectations are for that character going forward. So I think it's kind of that's kind of a neat writing trick to pull out to try and talk about what this character is going to be. And, again, it's this bizarre foreshadowing going from like 2004, 2005 to what would end up happening in 2008, where you almost had a figure in John McCain who was almost that plain spoken, and that almost real talk.
Here's the thing, and I don't want to lose Jesse, and I don't want to lose the people watching. We've actually had an audience tonight, which I appreciate people doing this. Please come back. We're not always this long-winded. But I think back to how Reagan put the Republican Party back together again after it had been smashed throughout the 60s and the 70s. And one of the things he did was he shored up the religious right.
Yep. The
religious right were kind of like off on an island unto themselves. They're like one-issue people. It was, you know, laws that reflect. We're this short of being Iranians. Like we want a theocracy, but we can't say that out loud because that's what the Iranians do. So, yeah. But that's kind of the way, at least back then, that's kind of the way the Christian right was. And then they got made legitimate by Reagan's three legs of the stool. And that just kind of stayed as part of the Republican Party to the point where at the time at which Vinick is making that speech, you would never have said that to the Christian right. You're not saying whether you believed it or not is immaterial. You're not saying that your values don't matter. People are being emotionally immature, intellectually immature, and you're being ridiculous. And we need higher order thinking here. Those people will the next day will say you are possessed by Satan. And everyone knows that. That's the thing is, like, people who are, like, into politics, going to hear me. They're not listening. But they would hear me say this and go, like, he's right. Vinick is wish fulfillment. Because there are plenty of people in Hollywood who like the idea of, like, you know, Republican conservative policies, just don't like conservatives or Republicans because they tend to be crazy people, by and large. And then, they owe allegiance to the religious right, which gets the vote out, which is another issue here. Like, the reason why Republicans got so strong coming out of the 80s was because the religious right motivated people to fucking vote. You know, they were in churches every Sunday going, and Jesus sent us, Ronald Reagan and George Bush and so on and so forth.
It's the high floor.
Right.
There's always this, conservatives in general have this much higher floor where you will always get out 30 to 40% of the vote.
Right. They're a lot more organized.
If everyone else wavers, then as long as that stays there, then...
Right. They're a lot more organized than they tend to be on the left, which is a whole other conversation. Yeah. So my point is, it's hard to stay invested in this show, and this is why I'm only bringing it up. I'll give you a chance to respond to this. It's hard for me to stay invested in the show right now because it's gone too far to once. Like, when Robert keeps beating the same drum over how bad the writing gets, I now understand what he means. We have left the realm of plausible, relatable television craft and have gone completely mad into the realm of utter fantasy. And if you're not real with it and you don't pay attention to politics, you probably don't notice. I'm sure Jesse's like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. but I have noticed, and it annoyed me, Andrew. It annoyed me.
Well, fair enough. But I mean... like I said, I like it, and you know, I'm in on the politics and stuff like that. I mean, you know, I think it's even interesting thinking about Vinick, like that debate of it's like, are you better off going more towards the middle or really trying to shore up that right wing? That's a debate that's going on in Canada right now, because the Tories just had the highest turnout they've ever had and not won a majority, and they lost. And now it's like, okay, wait a second, we took this deep steer to the right. We did as good as we're ever going to go, but we also lost.
Here's the only thing I'm going to say about this, and then I'm going to let you have the last word and we can move on. Our current president, not particularly religious. He's not. Yes. Let's call it spade a spade.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Guess which part of the world he cozied up to and cosplayed as? The religious right.
Oh, I see that picture at least once a day on there with some kind of commentary on it. We'll put it to you that way.
The man was selling Bibles. I mean, I love it. Oh, yeah. I love this country, and that a man who is utterly a-religious is selling Bibles and people will buy them because he is sent from Jesus. I rest my case.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Prosecution fucking rests.
No, fair enough. Absolutely. Though, Mark, I will sell you on Canada in 30 seconds or less. You hate elections and you hate election cycles.
Mm-hmm.
By law, 37 days.
Honey, we're moving to Canada.
I'm not kidding.
I was trying to sell her on.
Drop you have 37 days.
After I saw the big beautiful bill pass today, I seriously considered moving to Vietnam, and she's like, "It's too hot," and I'm like, "Oh, that's right, you're a cold weather person." So I guess Toronto, here we come.
Heading north,
and there's some fantastic Vietnamese food. No, I'm serious. There's good Vietnamese food all over Canada.
She's scolding me at the moment. I can hear her through my cans. All right. I have blathered enough. I've run my own political campaign tonight. Andrew, was there anything we have not mentioned that you wanted to talk about?
In terms of big thematic elements or just random stuff that I like?
Yes.
Well, I think, Jesse, don't you have kind of the episode rundown really quick?
Oh,
We do that last. Let propriety, sir.
I have nothing else substantive. I think at this point I have little trivia from there on, which I will add to this.
Okay.
I will add one thing ahead of that. Weirdly enough, Jimmy Smits actually canonically exists within the West Wing.
Jimmy Smits.
Like Jimmy Smits, the actor, exists within the role of the West Wing.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
There was a reference to there's some episode where there's somebody doing a protest around an island that was being used as a gunnery range, and they made an offhand remark about an actor who had been arrested protesting. Jimmy Smits had been arrested protesting U.S. naval gunnery at Vieques in like '96.
Oh, fantastic! The only thing I will say is the season ends with Santos and Leo being named. Being nominated for president and vice president in the next election cycle, and they're up against Vinick and whoever the actor is, the conservative firebrand.
Yeah,
that's more of the role of the VP in presidential politics is, attack dog.
Yep.
So that of all the things I've complained about, that made sense to me.
Oh, Josh sitting in the bar screaming at him while he's taking shots at Bartlett.
Yeah.
And then Vinick turning around and giving like that perfect speech where he just like sets himself up as Bartlett's successor and kind of reduces everybody else. Like that is the thing is at this point that they had a few folks who'd been working on Gore's campaign. So they kind of understood the mechanics of good political communication, good political like management. So I think that kind of comes off a lot in that. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now.
Okay. All right. Well, since Andrew has nothing further and I think exhausted all the major points that I wanted to hit, other than I didn't realize how adorable Kristen Chenoweth is, and I want one. I want my own.
Okay.
I want a Kristen Chenoweth. Is that possible, please?
Oh, man.
I gotta call this one. Did you see the moment when they were doing the walk and talk with Charlie? I think it was Impact Winter, and she ducked under the filing cabinet.
Oh, nice! I did not catch
seriously. That was one of those things where you watch it and it's like, holy shit, did she just duck under the filing cabinet?
That's funny.
She is a dainty woman.
Indeed.
I can see why she was Glinda on Broadway and Wicked all those years.
Yep.
All right, Jesse, it is your time.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
We touched on a lot of these, but I'll go through them once again here. Just kind of standout bits from each episode. All right. We already talked about what my episode 1 note was, which was Leo asked, telling him he's going to have to give the order to bomb, and Bartlett's like, or what? And then episode 2, Andrew brought it up. Stand firm when skeet shooting. Okay, make sure you plant your feet.
Well, that shit never gets old.
Episode 3, Josh barging in on CJ after she just said he was an adult, or maybe he just said one or the other, accusing her of covering him in donut custard. So if you guys remember the junk food episode where, that was pretty funny.
And you're wearing a floppy hat.
Episode 4, CJ has a door to the Oval Office that she's never used. She just never uses it. She just now that she's got this new office, and Charlie grabs her and walks her over to the door. He's like, "This is your door."
Charlie were really two of the characters we needed more time with on this show because they have so many gold moments.
Yeah. Episode 5, we have. Oh my goodness, I think this is where Kristen Chenoweth first shows up, I believe. Toby has to seduce the press. But anyway, there's a moment in here where they're talking about this large area of solar cells. And I just saw an article about this California solar farm that was like frying birds every year, like 6,000 birds every year. And they're getting ready to shut it down. Anyway, I thought it happened as soon as I watched this episode, I swear. Which, again,
I have solar on my roof, but I don't kill birds, I promise.
I was amazed because it said it fries 6,000 birds, and I was like, I don't know what is happening there, but my goodness. Episode 6, Leo's recovering. I thought really there wasn't much in this episode that stood out other than this relationship that Leo has with his nurse. I thought that was, again, showing kind of the tender side of Leo and him going through his recovery. Episode Episode 7, the gifts unit. When he takes the flag and then Charlie has to go get this flag back from the guy that handles all the gifts.
The fucking gifts department. He's like, and you wouldn't want me to break the law, would you?
Then Charlie shows up with a lawyer.
I'll tell you guys right now, he comes back and every one of his scenes are great.
No. Oh, good.
Yep.
Good.
He's like the actor who plays Lord John Marbury, who I'm sure is on Jesse's list. By the way, did you happen to notice who the lawyer was, Jesse?
I recognize this guy as the lawyer from The Wire, as a matter of fact,
correct.
right? Yep.
Maurice Levy, you slimy bastard.
Episode 8, Penn and Teller burn an American flag in the White House. Yee.
You go to law school? No, clown school. These guys are great.
I have been on both sides of that, where you kind of want to punch the person who it's like, it would be so easy if you would just move slightly, just budge a little. And we can get past this. No.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going. I don't have to. I'm not going to. Whee! Like, oh, I hate everything about you.
And I'm smart enough to pull it off.
Yes.
Episode 9. Tell me who I just wrote the quote down, and I could see just about 3 or 4 people saying it. I want to say it was Bartlett, but I was wrong, or I could be wrong. Never quote me to me, which is a great line.
It's right up there with one of mine. Don't correct me.
Never quote me to me.
Might have been Bartlett.
Yeah, I feel like it was
I
Bartlett.
just can't remember it.
Yeah. Episode 10, I have Kristen Chenoweth standing beside Allison, which was great. You guys already mentioned that. Episode 11, opposition research. And Josh, I think this is the first time Josh sees Donna over in Bingo Bob's campaign after she had quit. Which was, my goodness, we didn't even touch on
no, we didn't. I was just thinking
the tension between those two. Between Josh and Donna.
I know what's going to happen with them in season 7. We'll be able to get into the vast and tawdry love affair between Josh and Donna.
Yeah, episode 12 follows that up with, this Josh and Donna stuff. I think this was the episode where they're staying in the same hotel right across from each other. Josh at one point goes over to knock on her door and decides not to. I mean, you just cut the tension.
We've all been there. Well, Jesse hasn't. He's been married since he's 9. But the rest of us, we've all seen that pretty girl, and and just when you feel like you're gonna knock on that door, you're like, but I can't, but I must, but I can't, but I must, but I won't.
And Will, I think was it the actor who played Will when he did the commentary for that episode? He's like, well, I hope I love somebody the same way my character loved that ice cream sandwich that came out of that vending machine.
We didn't see what Joshua Molina did to that ice cream sandwich, but oh boy.
Oh, we forgot to talk about Abby and NASCAR.
Oh yeah. The moment out that they're laying out the pictures of all the NASCAR drivers, he's like, I
came from a NASCAR family, and that was a really funny scene.
Yeah, same here. I was naming the drivers as she was laying them down. That looks like Jeff Gordon.
That was Jeff Gordon.
Was it? Okay, all right.
One was.
So I had 2 other notes on here. The one that I sent you guys, that my first holy shit moment was the dude from MathNet showing up. Raise your hands if you guys know what MathNet is. All right.
Not watch it.
Okay. This is a PBS Square One. Okay. Was a educational show that came out. Anyway, a guy by the name of Joe Howard was one of the people that was like playing the fiddle or something. He used to go by the character named George Franklin on MathNet. Anyway, Patricia Richardson shows up.
Yes.
In that episode. That was the other note that I had.
She is great throughout. There's a couple of new characters they throw in here, like the Annabeth, like Patricia Richardson, who, I mean, I think literally was a season removed from Home Improvement, and she is so good in this.
I swear to God, it feels like anyone who is anyone in television acting has made a pass through the West.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Matthew Perry was so good for his 2 or 3 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the wake-up call where we had, Doc Brown play, what was his name again? Something Lessig?
Lawrence Lessig, who actually exists. Yeah. And actually was on the West Wing Weekly to talk about that episode.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Well, I love how at the beginning they're sitting down. Who was the country that they were sitting down with that was trying to...
Georgia?
That's what I was thinking too. It was like Georgia. But anyway, I love how they're laying it all out there, and they're asking him. I think they're asking Toby questions. And one of the things, Toby gives them an answer, and one of the guys looks up and he goes, "Okay, so you're
Belarus.
What's that?
It was Belarus.
Belarus. Your habit is to ignore this document." And I was like,
kinda, yeah.
Well,
Or we have the Supreme Court interpret law that says the law doesn't have to be followed.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Episode
I'm
15.
saying nothing on fear of ever being let in the U.S. again. And I wish I were kidding.
You were on a podcast, sir,
this
correct?
Is a fun podcast to have before the world ends.
It's happened.
My gosh. Episode 15. I mean, Mary Louise Parker shows back up in this one, but my favorite moment is Donna versus the chicken. So
yes, Donna versus the chicken.
Loved it. And then episode 16, we got another versus, but that one we already talked about, Josh versus Toby, which was, man.
I got to talk about one thing here. Obviously, we talked about the great kind of gravitas of that episode. The scene in the ballroom where they have that particular piece of music going, and they literally just have the characters talking to each other, and the lighting is there, and the camera movement is there, and it's just fun. And you've got the whole back and forth between Will and Kate, and those two apparently have great chemistry together. And it's just like, damn, that is a good piece of work right there.
Yeah. You mentioned the Will and Kate thing, and I thought that was actually something that was going to, at least it didn't take off in this season, but there was something there. So yeah. Episode 17, Andrew, the Canada situation.
Oh, fuck. Don't. Oh, my God.
I would like to show you my plans for invading Canada. Please don't.
I forgot about this. I hate that fucking bit. I hate it so much.
Oh, my gosh.
We're not that dopey, I swear to God.
Like, we're just, the way that they end the conflict is like by ending hunting season. Is that how it ended? Is that
okay? They missed a lampshade to put on the end of that, where I want Kate to turn around and says, "I never want anyone from Fish and Wildlife in this goddamn situation room ever again."
Yeah, that guy piping up right at the beginning. Unless you want to talk about the Canada situation. What? Oh, shit.
And then we have like the world's worst French prime minister.
Oh, man. Episode 18, La Palabra. I mean, this was, I think, one of these things where Mark was kind of probably getting upset with the healthcare talk, just going around. And we had Santos trying to get his policy across to people who weren't interested in hearing it sometimes. But he'd be asked a question, he'd bring it right back to his policy on healthcare. Episode 19. This was Brian Dennehy's in this episode. This is where Leo goes to, I think he goes down to is it
Cuba?
Bolivia? What? Cuba. Yeah. But anyway, there's a moment where these entomologists are in there talking about how these bugs are infesting the White House, and they want to study the bugs so they can understand like what was going on back in the day, because they'll apparently have all this information and history on the White House if they could start and study these bugs, which was, I just thought it was interesting out of all this other stuff
I'm going to jump in and say my least favorite episode of this entire series.
Really?
It kind of, I see what they were going for, but it's like the whole Kate Leo subplot and how it ties back to the whole question, because like the whole Cuba-American situation and relationship is huge. Like, I mean, Mark, you're in Florida, like Cuban expatriates are like a massive political force in your state.
At the very least in the city of Miami.
Yep.
Yeah. Episode 20, this was one we'd already talked about. I highlighted where Vinick had really laid out his views on religion and politics, and that moment where he's talking with the president, which is great, sitting around ice cream. Episode 21.
And it didn't end with him being nailed to a cross, which I thought was interesting.
Right. Episode 21, we get I think it's Josh who's talking about like a wrestler could go out there and do a promo or something like that, and it wouldn't work.
I was gonna say, I think Leo is the one that says it's pro wrestling.
Oh, okay. And then Josh is like, I think it's Josh that says something apart from apart from Minnesota. And I knew that they were making a Jesse Ventura reference at that point, which was pretty cool. And then episode 22, we have the primary that's going on, all this disarray amongst the Democratic Party. And Jed Bartlet says, I think Aaron Burr has 20 votes in this.
Aaron Burr, sure. Yeah, there's a lot of Hamilton West Wing crossover, and it's all intentional.
Oh, my goodness. That's awesome. That is awesome. All right, that's it. That is my notes at season 6.
All right, I got to do a straw poll here really quick.
Okay, sure.
I know how this ends, so I want both of your opinions. Who leaked the space shuttle?
It's somebody on staff, right?
Yes.
Probably Toby.
I told Mindy tonight once we were watching it, I was like, I don't think it was CJ. I don't think it was. They're playing it like it is, but I don't think it was. Now, as to who it's going to be, I don't know. I actually watched the first 2 episodes. Well,
okay.
First episode and a half. So we don't get the answer there. They're still investigating and trying to figure out what's going on. But regardless, I don't think it's CJ. I think Toby's about the only other thing that I could, only other person I could think of. So I'll go with Toby as well.
Okay, I'm registering both of you guys for Toby. We will see what happens next season.
Check mark. All right.
Well, folks, that was our review of the West Wing season 6. We have one more season left, and then we're done with this. But then, because Andrew insisted, we're going to do 2 episodes, 3 seasons of The Newsroom, where we get to do the wish fulfillment of a story of a conservative cable news program. It's going to be fantastic. So I've been talking when I ask Fancy to help me with my scripts for my TikTok reads. I say, when it will occasionally default back to its normal tone, what it thinks normal humans want, which is be screamy and stupid. And I'm like, that's not me. I have to keep telling you, like, write this again, but in the style of a cross between Bill O'Reilly, Walter Cronkite, and John the Baptist. And and after the AI stops smoking,
I was going to say, okay. It exploded. OpenAI now has.
I was about to say,
lawsuit.
Mark, you just fried a few birds trying to power that AI run.
Right.
Have you ever seen an AI blink at you? That's what happens. But
I'm sorry, Mark. I can't do that.
Somebody actually described me. They were looking at my TikTok. It was John, actually, the guy who was on the Muppets review. And he was just like, I like a lot of your stuff lately. You have a I'm not wearing any pants or Andy Rooney vibe going. I'm like, I'll take that.
Apt.
As a guy who used to watch 60 Minutes religiously, that is so on point.
I am definitely. So I'll tell a quick story. I was on TikTok Live last night, and I am, the old man of the mountains, and they don't want them painted. But I'm doing TikTok Lives, and, occasionally I'll have, like, especially some of the younger kids who aren't supposed to be on TikTok Live calling in and asking me questions. And it's always stupid shit like, what do you think is Trump's doing? And I go, kids. And then I go out to dinner with my mother, and she says, Trump is ruining the country. How? Because he's ruining it. All right. So the intellectual discourse at 80 and 15 is about the same. Got it. So anyway, so be nice to your mothers, everybody.
I'm not entirely sure we shouldn't both lower and cap the voting age at this point.
25 to 35. Leave it at that. But
oh, no. I know what kind of idiot I was between 25 and 35. We've got to have more range than that, man.
Fair. And anyway, so they're in the chat, and I'm getting a couple of, like, trolly kind of remarks. Like Jesse knows from the Blog Talk Radio days, people would call in, be like, hey, I want to ask you a question about Spider-Man. Let me first get your opinion on this. Why are you gay? Like, all righty. And remember Jesse?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That kind of a thing. They were doing things like, you live in a trap house. Like, you can see the house behind me. This one right here. And they're like, you live in an abandoned house. Okay. And I don't understand why they're saying that. Like, is there something about my house? And then, like, another person last night specifically, like, there's a roach on your wall. And I'm like, I know there isn't. Why are you saying this? And so, because I'm me, I sat with the AI and I was like, what is happening here? I don't understand. I don't understand the youth of today. And it kind of explained to me that there's this whole like online culture of Gen Alpha mimicking shit they saw on YouTube and doing it on like streams, like live streams. So I wrote this whole essay about how this has to do with trauma and this has to do with unparented children. And I get it about 5 minutes weaving a few different strings together into a very strong rope. And I posted it and pinned it at the top. And so tonight I'm on my live stream and one or two kids comes in and I'm just like, I see what you're doing. I've already addressed this. It's my TikTok at the top there. Go read that and don't bother me none. And one kid tried to keep pushing me and I was like, and you're blocked. You're not getting a rise out of me. You know, I've been doing this too long and I'm too old and I've got 2 other big deals to deal with. You're not getting a rise out of me. And
Mark, take it from me. Literally just say they're cringe, mid, and skibbity toilet, and they will roll their eyes as hard as ever and walk off the entire conversation.
Sir, you insult me with your inane chatter, and to you I say skibbity toilet.
Oh, God. I am so going to use that on my daughter. That is... Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. That's going to be so awesome.
This has now been a very useful podcast. All right. Speaking of useful,
I think you skibbity toilet, sir. Good day.
I wish you would skibbity toilet. Be gone. Someone drops a house on you. All right. So, speaking of dropping houses, I was out on Sunday, but Monday we did a review of Megan 2.0. I had a good time with it. It's a stupid movie, but it was fine. This weekend is July 4th. However, Sunday, we're back, and Jesse and I will be doing a Barry Levinson focus. Are you excited for this, Jesse? We're talking Good Morning Vietnam, Sleepers, and Wag the Dog, because you haven't had enough politics this week.
I haven't watched any of those movies, and I love a Robin Williams movie, and I don't know why I haven't watched Good Morning Vietnam. So this is going to be fun.
Oh my God, you've never seen Good Morning Vietnam?
Haven't seen any of those.
Hey,
so.
Andrew, this guy's never seen Good Morning Vietnam.
Oh wow. That was like on TBS in rotation for a long time.
I was gonna say, like that was big on cable.
So that and like the Shawshank Redemption.
So you've never seen any of these 3 movies?
No, I feel like I might have watched Wag the Dog, but when I get into it, I'll let you know for sure.
Fair enough. So we're going to be doing that on Sunday because I think it started like this came out of like my need to show you the movie where the kid runs into the column and breaks his nose in the juvenile hall. And somehow that led me to Sleepers, which then led me to Good Morning Vietnam and Wag the Dog. I have a beautiful mind.
I've never seen Sleepers.
Oh, it's great.
I'm just looking up, and the cast is fantastic. Like the young cast is fantastic.
Yeah,
like Jonathan Tucker from Kingdom's in it.
Oh wow, I've seen Sneakers.
Okay,
and
then on Monday we'll be reviewing Jurassic World Rebirth. Wednesday, Harry and I will be doing an Indie-Siders. We'll be talking about my favorite wrestling event of the whole year at large, GCW Backyard Wrestling. Hot damn. Gonna hit each other with cars, slam each other in pools, and shoot fireworks at each other like in a celebration of American freedom, as long as we have it. On Thursday, Shay Tatum's back. We're going to be looking at 3 musicals: Odessa, which debuted on Hulu this year, The End, which debuted in December of last year, and Dear Evan Hansen, which I took my daughter to. Friday, I will be picking up where Ronnie left off. I will be reviewing Tulsa King Season 2 with Pat Mullen, which I now have changed this to 11 o'clock. And then on Saturday, no, yes, no, maybe, no, good. Okay, that's all for me, thanks. Jesse, show us where you're pissed from.
You guys ever heard of that superhero that was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby? Patriotic dude. The Fighting American. That's right. We're going to be talking The Fighting American tomorrow on Unspoken Issues. Rob Liefeld got a hold of that licensed. He licensed Fighting American and dropped 2 issues back in the 90s of the series itself. He did a couple other stories after that as well. But yeah, we get some Rob Liefeld and Stephen Platt art, and we get some good stuff. I think it's I think that it's Jeff Loeb that does the writing. So, hey, that ain't
Okay.
too bad. That ain't too bad.
So good writing in pouches, basically.
Pouches. That's right. Pouches. But yeah, you can check that out. That's Unspoken Issues. It's going to be airing in conjunction with Independence Day tomorrow. And then the Source Material Comics podcast, where myself and Mark Radulich are going to be discussing this coming Monday, All-Star Superman. That's right. Mark, I saw you dropped a TikTok on this one, didn't you? Like talking about the book?
I'll be trying to sell books and shit.
I love it. Going to the TikTok shop. And then, of course, the Snap Material podcast, where myself and Evan Bevins get together and discuss Marvel Snap. If you play Marvel Snap on your mobile device, you might want to check it out. We drop about 4 episodes every month, and we're going to be recording, I think, the next season this coming Saturday. So check that out as well. And that is it. That's all my plugs.
All right. Andrew would like to tell you about all the martial arts he does and follows and breathes into his lungs and poops out his butt. Go ahead, Andrew.
That was interesting.
You asked me to not say that you roll around with children in your pajamas, so I didn't. That's what you get. Be happy.
You somehow made both of these worse, and that's impressive.
You're welcome.
Okay, I train at Esteem and Havoc Martial Arts here in Calgary, Alberta. My instructor, Jay Cooper, actually has a very good kind of reality-based, lessons learned, breakdowns on actual street situations and stuff like that through Reality Check. So check him out at Reality Check Jay. I'm also going to actually plug something else on this network, because I will be back on, I believe, July 23rd to talk with Mark and Alexis to fire up another season of The Bear, which I have a low-level addiction to.
It's all he talks about. I'm like in the middle of sessions and shit, and Andrew's like, "And more about The Bear." Please, I can only.
Dude, I literally you were in a session at like midnight last night, because that's when I sent that message. But I'm Mark. I am, aside from this, I am actually legitimately looking forward to talking about The Bear, because it is really impacted me.
Oh, Andrew, you are like the Lord Marbury of this podcast network. You come in and immediately make everything better and want to kiss everyone's breasts. And I welcome you with open arms. Please make sure you show this to your wife. All right.
She actually does listen to the ones I'm on, so there's a pretty good chance that she'll hear this.
Fantastic. Hello, Mrs. Graham. I'm sorry.
Alicia, I'm sorry.
For the blushing bride, Andrew Graham, for the always great Jesse Starcher, I have to go batch my face reach for tomorrow. Be well, be safe, and behave.